Were you ever that 1 in 1 million? If so, what's your story? Story 1. I had 8 wisdom teeth. The dentist had never seen anything like it and called the whole office into marvel at my teeth that it can't find the x-ray, but I still have the teeth. Story 2. I was struck by lightning while talking on a landline. This was in the early 90s. Lightning struck the telephone line and traveled through the handset to my ear. My parents drove me to the ER. I couldn't talk very well. My brain knew what I wanted to say, but my mouth didn't want to say it. I had a terrible stutter. My doctor told me that I had had a dose of good, old-fashioned electroshock therapy. My speech was normal the next day, but I get a terrible headache whenever a thunderstorm comes through. Edit autocucumber. Edit 2. Thank you for the gold. Story 3. I slept wrong one night and pinched a nerve in my neck so severely I lost the right side of my body. It just went silent like it wasn't there for months. I woke up in the worst pain I've ever experienced and couldn't talk, move, or do anything. The ER doctor thought I was having a stroke. My doctor had never seen a case as severe as mine, and it was purely a freak accident. Recovery took months, but I have use of my leg and hand again, with some numbness other than pain and spasms and mostly back to normal. Story 4. I have completely unexplained hearing loss in my left ear. I had a cyst in it when I was 6, and the surgery to remove it and fix the ear was successful. When I was about 12, I woke up one morning with a killer headache and ear ringing, and after 3 days it went away, and so did my hearing. Doctors did multiple examinations and an MRI, and they said it should be totally functional. It just isn't. 1 in a million case. Story 5. For my 7th birthday, we went to Disneyland. They just happened to be having a car a day giveaway. When we were there for my 7th birthday, Mickey Mouse gave me a Pontiac Firebird. Story 6. I have a very rare skin disease that only 1 in a million people get. I've been told that I'll probably never meet another person in my lifetime with it. Haley disease for those interested. Edit for those asking one. I was diagnosed by a team of dermatologists. They had to take a biopsy of one of my many outbreaks. A picture of that particularly horrible rash is currently in a medical journal, or so I've been told too. Yes, it is a very painful disease. 3. Yes, I get steroid injections for it. I also get Botox injections to control sweating and prevent some of my outbreaks. 4. No, I don't know if you have this disease. You have to get a biopsy. 5. Yes, it's inherited. My mother was a carrier, and I've been told my grandmother had the disease for more than half her life. Story 7. I have symmetric bilateral coloboma of the iris and retina. Essentially, my pupils are shaped like keyholes instead of circles. A single coloboma is pretty rare. Double coloboma is even more rare, and double symmetrical. Well, you get it. Edit obligatory. Thanks for the silver. Kind stranger, I fell asleep after posting this and woke up to a bunch of feedback. I posted over in Reyes just now with more information. Story 8. I was in 2 separate car crashes in 2 separate cars in less than 45 minutes apart. Also, go use Shark Boy. Edit, I wasn't the driver for either crash. First car was hit from the side. Friend came and picked us up. Car lost traction, and we slid off the road and hit a pole. Neither was that bad, just poor timing. Story 9. Diagnosed with an extremely rare liver disease, primary hyperoxaluria. Some 300 people in the United States currently have it. Basically pass a lot of kidney stones and need a double transplant to fix. Edit, whoa, just woke up to a whole lot of questions and support. Thank you all very much, and thank you for the gold. Edit 2 golds. Nice. Also, I should have been more clear. When I say double transplant, I meant kidney liver transplant. Edit, sorry for another edit, but I really just wanted to thank every single person who replied to my answer. So many times I lose myself in my own mind and feel alone, and the fact that I receive support from strangers helps me so much. Some people even offer to donate. Wow, just wow, it's hard to express over text, but I will forever remember this. Also, I wanted to say to check up on the people around you. I may look like a normal person. I don't have tubes running from my body. My head may not be bald, but I still suffer mentally. And, kidney stones, haha. Just check up on your friends and family and make sure they're doing okay. Thank you, everyone. Story 10. I was so freakishly allergic to ant and bee venom as a child that a single sting from a single little common black ant put me into anaphylactic shock. When my allergist was preparing to start immunotherapy for me, he found that the in-office lab equipment wasn't sensitive enough to measure the infinitesimally small amount of allergen with which to start my titration. So he had to send a sample of my blood to Johns Hopkins so that their lab could determine how much to give me. I did immunotherapy for several years to reach an immune response level at which it would be safe for me to basically exist in a non-frozen climate. Good news, though I'm good now. I've had a few run-ins with ants and wasps since my immunotherapy, and my body didn't freak out and shut down, and research indicates that if it hasn't done that after this long, I'm probably safe for, maybe forever. I don't have EpiPens, and I'm not overly afraid of ants or bees. Edit overnight response. Thanks for this silver. To answer a few questions, I live in Florida. I am not outdoorsy, but stinging things are everywhere. It is, in fact, the Australia of North America. No, my parents would not move me to the frozen tundra to be a nomadic reindeer herder at my behest. Little black ants do. In fact, sting. Several laziest subspecies have stingers and venom. When an ant bites you, that's using their mandibles and does not deliver venom. When an ant stings you, that's using their but needle and delivers the pain juice. Most ants do one or the other. Fire ants do both at the same time. I did some research a while back and found an academic paper that indicated that if I haven't had a reaction after this many years, the likelihood that I ever would again is vanishingly rare. I wish I could find it again right now. But I'm already late getting ready for work, so if I find it later, I will post it. I feel completely safe having a cell phone instead of an AP pen. Story 11, I was on Tinder and was talking to this guy. He was supposed to meet me for dinner. I texted him and no answer. Then I texted him on Tinder, said that he couldn't make it. However, I got a text back from the number. It wasn't the guy that I thought I texted. It was the actor Gerard Butler. I thought he was lying until he FaceTimed me. Nice guy. Edit well, I didn't think this post would blow up. First, I didn't go on a date with him instead. He lives on the West Coast, and I live on the East Coast. I didn't keep his number because I respect his privacy. When he FaceTimed me, he was super casual and asked me why I was using Tinder, and he wished me luck on it. Story 12 had two 11 centimeters benign tumors growing in my spine, resulting in gradual paralysis from my chest down. They had no idea how the tumors formed. Surgery took 11 hours when they thought it would take 4, because the tumors were so complexly woven throughout my spine. I now have pretty much half a spine in chronic pain, but I take that over losing my life from paralysis and being unable to breathe at it. Wow. Thank you for all the support. I didn't realize this was going to blow up as much as it did. If anyone has specific questions and wants to message me, feel free. I am at your service. Thanks again for all the support and love. It made my day. XO. Story 13. I have an unknown type of autosomal dominant centronuclear myopathy. My type of it is so rare that they haven't even seen it before. Getting diagnosed was a multi-year struggle. They pretty much had to rule out everything else. It doesn't feel great to be in this club by myself. Countless blood draws, MRIs, CAT scans, and a biopsy and genetic test. So far, it looks like my father and I are the only ones with it. Yay, edit. Thank you guys for all the kind messages and support. I really do appreciate it. If anyone is going through the struggle of getting a diagnosis, message me. I can't help with the diagnosis, but I can help with the feelings. Second edit, as a researcher has pointed out, this isn't really rare, just a type that hasn't really been seen in the population yet, meaning there is certainly more people out there, just not tested or diagnosed yet. In the future, it'll probably be 1 in 50,000 to 1 in 100,000. Sorry to make everyone think I was 1 in a million. Story 14 got a rare, but potentially deadly rash from medication. I laughed when I first saw the bottle with the warning and said, knowing my luck, I'd get it. I did. Ended up in a burn unit with my skin sloughing off. Not a fun week. Edit. Holy. Big response. It's been amazing to hear how many people have similar stories and are taking meds with high risk. And for those wondering what med, it was lamictal for me. Story 15. No sure about the odds on this one, but I survived a non-survivable plane crush. I was on an old Batu famous for being very safe and uncrushable on a tour of the desert in western China. When I was like 7, my father's friend who hosted me and piloted the plane didn't survive, but somehow I got out with a concussion and apparently passed out for almost a day in the middle of the desert in the wreckage of the crash, 50 kilometers from the town airport on the edge of the desert. The people who found me were some tree planters. They plant greens in the desert to protect towns from sandstorm. A lot of people live in these desert towns in China. Do this found me on their way picking up a shipment. And the only reason they looked was BC. They were making a bet on how fast the egg would cook in the sand and went off the road to test. Edit. First thing first, according to legends, 15 minutes. I never tested it though. So according to my dad's, the theory that I might have lived was because the plane was mostly made out of fabrics. And so when the plane crashed, the front half collapsed and took the majority of the impact. Though I got knocked out, I was probably covered under the wreckage and in the shades. It cooled me off enough to survive for a day or so. Story 16, I am allergic to the cold. Like literally, I get intense hives, swelling, I pass out, and throw up. Doesn't even have to be freezing, below 45 degrees without a jacket, and I can't do it. I have to carry an AP pen with me in the event that I drink something too cold or have a severe reaction. Edit. Thank you, kind stranger, for my first silver. Story 17, no idea on the actual numbers, but I was born with 12 fingers, identical extra digits on each hand. Edit. This blew up. So, some backstory, I no longer have the fingers. My parents elected to have them removed shortly after birth. There was a video of when everyone found out, but my aunt has lost it over multiple moves. The fingers were functional and would have behaved as if they were part of the intended 10. I have a scar on each pinky from where they were removed. As an extra fun fact, my older sister had 2 extra toes that did not actually grow and show. They found this out in high school when she broke her foot, and they went in for x-rays and found that she has extra bones in her foot that just never grew out into the toes. Edit 2, sorry everyone. I posted this then went to bed. Couple common questions. No, I am not from Alabama or the South at all. The fingers would have worked and bent and functioned normally. They had bones, muscles, tendons, blood vessels. My hand is shaped completely normal. The fingers were like a double pack of Twix where they're side by side. The only thing that it would not have been able to do was move sideways very far, as there was not a lot of webbing between original pinky and extra pinky. Fun fact too, this all comes from my dad's side of the family. My dad is born with 2 extra teeth, and my sister and I have different moms. They'll try to answer any other questions that I did not cover in this. Well, I just woke up to a ton more questions. My parents decided to remove them to basically just save a child the hardship of being made fun of, which I fully understand. Kids can be cruel, and I'm sure having 12 fingers is just ammo for them. The fingers were removed by being tied off, as others have mentioned from similar situations in the thread. And no, I don't have any proof other than the scars, but they're tiny. The bigger of the 2 just looks like a tiny mosquito bite on my left pinky. The right one looks the same, but is not raised. Also, this is now by far my most upvoted comment. And now I'm going to be known as the 12-finger guy on Reddit. Story 18, I was actually homeless for 4 years between 19 to 23 years old. As silly as it sounds, I used to earn some extra money at the time by helping around in a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. It was my biggest hobby when I was younger and was something I felt confident about. I also didn't have a passport or a bank account, so I couldn't get a normal job UK anyway. So at the time, I was stuck not earning enough money without a passport, bank account, or a real job. In the UK, you won't get hired by 99 of companies if you don't have a passport to prove you have a right to work. So one day, I got a phone call from a studio asking if I played Yu-Gi-Oh! And would consider myself a geek. Also, if I wanted to be in a TV show, they said they would send me to another country as part of it. Being homeless, the biggest problems is being bored. So naturally, I said yes, but told them I don't have a passport. No problem. We'll get you one straight away and pay for it ourselves. I ended up on a show called Geeks that you can still watch on Channel 4OD. Because I got this passport, I was finally able to get a job, a bank account, and finally a house. Now I'm looking after my 10-month-old daughter who's playing while I type this. So Yu-Gi-Oh! Saved me from being homeless. I might be in anime characters. TLDR was homeless until a TV company gave me a passport allowing me to get a job and a house. Because I played Yu-Gi-Oh! Edit this blow up more than expected. So here are some answers to some questions. Also, thanks for the gold and silver guys. How did you have a phone? I had a cheap brick phone that would run on battery. For a week, think old Nokias. I used to charge in my local library in Peckham, London. How did I help in Yu-Gi-Oh? I was a judge for the tournaments. They're a referee for the game. How did the TV company found out about you? I was a judge for the game. Basically a referee. The TV show was looking for geeks with different hobbies, and they found out about Yu-Gi-Oh! After, assume a Google search, they found the person who run my local tournament to recommend different players and people, and she recommended me. Why do you need a passport? So in the UK, you need a government picture ID and a national insurance number like social security number in order to prove you're allowed to work in the UK. I have migraines that cause me to go part or near completely blind, so can't drive due to the risk. So don't have access to a driver's license as ID, leaving me only with a passport. Edit 2, I'm getting some people who are a little doubtful that it can be so hard to get a job while homeless or to get ID and are shocked it's taken me long to get out. What's important isn't what you know about the world right now. What's important is what I knew about the world as a 19-year-old that just left school. Think back to that age and honestly ask yourself how easy it would be to get a job without a bank and home address, ID, or experience of anything. Of course, now, as a 27-year-old, I'm armed with so much more knowledge to find a way out. Edit 3, some people have pointed out that you can get a job without a photo ID as long as you have a birth certificate. This is true from what I've researched, but isn't common practice from what I had experienced at the time. I wish I could aim this knowledge back to the past, but cannot. Edit 4, thanks for all the love and support and trying to reply to everyone, but the amount of comment are really overwhelming. If I don't message back, and sorry. Story 19, I own a Lego minifigure called Mr. Gold. This particular minifig was to celebrate the 10th series of the Lego figurine line. They're sort of like grab bags. You can feel for them, but you don't know what minifigure you're really going to get. So because they were celebrating, they thought it was a good idea to only make 5,000 of these. Anyways, when I was younger, and even now, I was really good knowing which figures they're simply by looking at the figures pieces and feeling out those pieces. I really liked the minifigures because I thought they were really cool and unique. So I really wanted Mr. Gold and me, and my mom hunted for it for a long time. But after a while, I gave up. Then one day, I was at the Lego store and felt the distinct diamond piece and freaked out. Finding this figure was a downright fantasy. I'm 18 now and still want to relive 12-year-old MES pure joy as he opened the packaging. Edit, thanks for making me Mr. Gold twice. Also 2 words. Story 20, the first one. I don't know about the exact odds, but I was born on 7,777 and weighed 7 pounds 7 ounces. Sadly, though, I clocked in at 650 m. The other is that around the age of 14, I started to notice the outsides of both of my feet starting to get much wider. After a couple of years of buying expensive custom-made shoes, they decided to perform surgery on my feet. Turned out I had extra muscle growth, along with something else I don't recall at the moment. My podiatrist told me he submitted a scholarly article on it. May also have been genetic, as when my dad was 3, he developed an extra toe growing out of each one of his big toes. Story 21, when I was a teenager, I had just started working at the local Sears Auto Center Express Lube Shop, and on day 1 did a quick orientation and my first oil change. The manager walked away when he felt I was good to go, and the oil change went well. Fast forward a few days later, my manager asked me to come into his office, and he explained that the oil filter I had used had one huge flaw. I didn't know what that was, and it turned out the filter was pressed on backwards into the filter can, and it wouldn't allow oil to flow in, and it damaged the motor. They had to purchase a new motor for the person, and I still kept my job. He said it was a 1 in a million chance that would have happened, and it did on my first oil change. Story 22, I was diagnosed with leukemia. I got a bacteria growth, which killed the leukemia. A real 1 in 1 million chance at it. I almost died thanks to that bacteria, though edit THX for the silver and gold kind strangers. Story 23, this is my mom's story, and I've posted it before, but she once called her friend back in the day on a lawn line, and another lady answered. My mom asks if her friend was there, and the lady says sure, he'll get her. My mom's friend hops on the phone and asks how she was here. Turns out my mom got a number wrong when dialing. Called a random house where someone was hosting a Tupperware party, and my mom's friend just happened to be attending it. What are the odds of that? Story 24, it got in my room through a tiny hole in the ceiling and took on me. Burb hole in ceiling. Story 25, when I was a kid, I was chilling in the water of the Mediterranean Sea in Turkey. Suddenly, I felt an awful burning sensation on my stomach and my legs. I looked like I'd been brutally sandpapered, and I got a 40C104F fever. Turns out I made contact with a jellyfish, and later found out that it hadn't happened on that beach for 10 years or so. I was just extremely unlucky. Story 26, I was diagnosed with a rare cancer that happens in males more often than females. Usually happens to patients between 45 and 60, and happens in the abdomen or legs. I was a 34-year-old female, and it happened in my right arm. For the record, I'm in remission, but I couldn't believe I defied everything about the stupid. Edit, okay, I'm going to be that person. My first gold? Thank you, kind stranger. Story 27, how I met my wife. I'm from the Netherlands. She is from the U.S. We met in Israel. It was my first weekend in Israel. Decided to go on a pub crawl to meet some people and have fun. As I'm buying the ticket, my now wife walks up to the counter to also buy a ticket. The girl working there introduces us. We hit it off the first night, but I'm leaving in 2 days to stay with friends of friends in the middle of the desert for 3 months. 2 days after I leave, I lose my phone. Don't have any way to get back in touch with her. I had little money and could stay work with the people in the desert. But I kept thinking about her. So after a week, I say I'm leaving. Take the next bus, goes 3 times a week at 5 a.m., and then a train to Tel Aviv. I had no idea how to find her, where to stay, and very little money. I email a couple hostels to find a workstay agreement. Those jobs are very popular and usually plan months in advance. I get an email back when I arrive in Tel Aviv. I can come in for an interview because they have a spot. This is already ridiculously lucky. Right after the interview and dropping of my belongings, I went back to the first hostel to see if they would give me information. They wouldn't give me anything. Now I'm at a loss. Tel Aviv is a city of more than 500,000 people. I don't know anyone and have little more than the clothes on my back. Kind of defeated, I start wandering around exploring the city. After a couple hours, I get hungry and decide to treat myself to a restaurant. I'm well out of the tourist area and find a place that's almost empty and rather cheap. I sit down, order a drink and something to eat. As I get my food, I see my now wife walking past the restaurant. She sees me, I see her. I'm literally dumbstruck and just kind of grin and wave. Remember how I lost my phone? She didn't know that and just thought I ignored her. She waves and keeps walking. I throw like 200 shekels, way too much, on the table and sprint after her. Explained, and the rest is history. Story 28, aggressive fallopian tube cancer. 2 years later, I had a malignant pleural tumor. Also have late diagnosis of stage 2 and 3 urogenital reflux, which is usually discovered before a kid is out of diapers. I was too old for the surgeons to fix it properly. Also, I'm a redhead with blue eyes, hitchhiker thumb, double jointed, and have double row of eyelashes, And my kid is a pretty close copy despite her bio dad having dominant genes, half Japanese. Story 29, not quite 1 in a million, but close enough. As a child, I had an extremely rare autoimmune disease on top of having an extremely rare illness. I developed the rarer and most dangerous of the symptoms. My kidney started shutting down. Most kids recover from this disease, but not always the ones with kidney issues. I was extremely lucky. I did not have to go on dialysis, and my kidneys eventually reached normal functioning levels. It took a decade to be completely cleared of the disease. My mother likes to call me a miracle child, not only because of this, but because she was not supposed to be able to have a kid due to health issues, and had several miscarriages before my stubborn decided to be born. Weird. Story 30, not quite 1 in a million, but it sure felt like it. When I graduated high school, I was offered a full-ride scholarship, entirely based on academic merit, to study the program I loved more than anything at the school I'd dreamed of going to for years. The school in question was notorious for giving very few scholarships, and the particular scholarship I won is awarded to very few students each year. I'm still pinching myself sometimes. Edit while my first silver. Thanks, guys. Story 31. I lived in Florida for the first 18 years of my life, and spent most of my free time outdoors, fishing, camping, what have you. The summer before my junior year of high school, I found myself out hiking nearby by my home with a buddy. We were stomping around in some clay deposits inside of a little ravine. Even minimal geographic relief is dramatic in a place as flat as the Gulf Coast when it started to Florida rain. For those of you who can't relate, imagine a torrential downpour. Our minds immediately jumped to the exciting possibility of a flash flood raging through the crevasses we were exploring. In an effort to make our day more exciting and not take any chances, we began to climb vertically out of the canyons versus take the lengthy path out of it horizontally. We got to the top, put our feet on the ground, and did pull up. As I stood up, I felt the ground underneath me squirm. I had stepped on a snake. I screamed and kicked the snake that was lashed onto my foot off me by reflex. As an Eagle Scout, I immediately recognized the red on yellow pattern as the snake slithered away and knew it was a coral snake. We rushed home, drove to the hospital, and was seen. The doctors informed my parents the nearest antivenin was a 3-hour helicopter ride away. The first symptom, lung failure, would occur after 2 hours. My parents called my friends and family, and we all spent time together. Without me knowing my fate, my friends and family arrived and subsequently left together. My parents turned off the lights, and we prayed together. Around 2 hours after being bitten, a nurse came into our dark room with gurney to collect my dead body. I asked the nurse, has there been any developments? To her surprise, the doctors came in, shocked I was alive, told me it was a dry bite, and that I should remain whatever religion I practiced. TLDR, I was bit by a coral snake. The doctors told my parents I was going to die. I survived. Edit, I just woke up, but it'll try to answer some of your questions before classes. 1 in 1 million is mainly getting bitten by the snake in the first place, but also subsequently surviving. 2 Christian Lutheran, just in case you were curious. Story 32. I was kidnapped when leaving work and held for 18 months along with 2 other girls. The guy who took us claimed himself to be an ineffable lower god and used cult tactics, manipulation, and control to have us be his family. I was allowed to leave to the grocery store as an errand, but knew if I didn't come back the others would receive my punishment. I finally got away by stabbing my captor when I believed he was going to kill me. Edit, I did a podcast about the experience, and if you'd like to give it a listen, go check out. Story 33. Born with Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. Had surgery at the age of 17. Many people don't have that diagnosis until they are old and gray. I had a freak accident that revealed it. Thanks everyone for the comments. After reading so many comments about people having WPW or have a loved one with it, I'm now curious as to why there is no subreddit for it. It's apparent little is known about WPW to many. Story 34. I am a 19-year-old male. In August of last year, I was driving with my sister when suddenly her face turned cold. Gavin, your eyes are yellow. I remember her saying. I quickly pulled down the passenger's mirror, and to my horror, 2 yellow eyes radiated back at me. Fast forward, I spent a month being sick. The initial diagnosis was hepatitis A. Went back to the doctor. Nothing was better, things were worse in fact. Was sent to the ER, then to the liver transplant unit at UCSF. By this point, my eyes had turned muddy orange, and my pee was the color of a mahogany tree. Anyways, the team of liver doctors at UCSF managed to save my liver. I was diagnosed with autoimmune hepatitis. Oh, and my eyes are white again. Story 35. Bought $3 worth of Pong at one of those games at the state fair. I think it was 10, and the grand prize is in the middle, and you have to land it in a small glass container. I was having fun and just decided to throw it by flicking my wrist in a weird way. It bounced around for a while and landed right in the red glass container, which was a grand prize. Even the worker was surprised that I got it. Had to walk around the state fair with a giant Charmander plush toy after that. Story 36. I was born 1 pound and 6 ounces in 1998. Doctors said I had like a 15 of surviving or something like that. They also said that if I did survive, I would have been a vegetable. So months passed. Funny thing was I came out of the hospital on the day I was due, came out in February, left the hospital in June, while I am still forming as a baby, and it's 20 years later, and I'm alive and healthy. I can walk, talk, and all the normal things. Only thing really wrong with me is my right eye is hanging on a thread cause of reasons, and I'm socially autistic. I guess that's 1 in 1 million. Story 37, my life. Not in the cliche, OMG, the mate at the egg kind of way. My father was married to somebody else, was officially missing, and was last seen in the USA. My mother was a drug addict, alcoholic, living on the streets of the downtown east side of Vancouver. She was already pregnant according to the pee test she took. She smoked, she did drugs. She drank, she did God knows what else to get her hands on those things. Somehow, I was born underweight, but with only mild FASD caused by all of that. I ended up in foster care going out from 2 to 5 until becoming a ward of the province. I went on to get my bachelor's. I've broken the cycle. My children have a safe home, food on the table. They know they're loved. Obligatory thanks for the gold edit. Thank you all for the support. I'm trying to respond to everyone, but between my 3 comments on this thread, I am getting overwhelmed. Love you all 3. Story 38. When I was 14 years old, I woke up one day with heavy stomach cramps. We called the hospital, and they told us that I probably have a stomach flu and should go to the doctor next morning. After one of the worst nights ever, vomiting and sleeping next to the toilet, we went to the doctor. I had a fever of 40°C and was aching a lot. The doctor told me I had to go to ER and have it checked out because she thought my appendix was inflamed and causing the pain. We went to the ER, and I stayed in the hospital for about 2 weeks, but they couldn't find anything. They treated me with broad-range antibiotics, and after 2 weeks, I was feeling a bit better, and they told me to go home and recover. The night I got back from the hospital, I went to bed and started hallucinating that I lived in a retirement home and that pirates were coming to steal our food. So I was flailing around trying to fend the pirates when my mother came in and asked what all the fuss was about. I told her what was going on, and she looked at me like I had summoned a devil. She took my temperature, and she instantly took me to the ER again. I had a 41°C fever. When we went back to the hospital, I got treated immediately for inflammation, and they did a wide range of tests again. They saw that something in my body was inflamed, but they couldn't find it. I stayed in the hospital for about 2 more weeks when they finally found what was going on. My appendix was inflamed and burst the night I was having the hallucinations, but on all the scans, they couldn't see my appendix. The doctor told me that if I came in 2 days later, I would have died because of the flowing in my body. Apparently, there's a 1 chance of all the appendix cases that the appendix is so stretched out that they couldn't see it on the scans, or that the area was so inflamed they didn't see it. So after staying on antibiotics for about 2 more weeks, they finally removed my appendix, and all the pain was gone. I stayed in the hospital for over 4 weeks just because of my appendix and my bad luck on being that one. Story 39. Had pygmy glandular fever when I was 16. Nothing special about that. Had pneumonia a few months later, probably due to my weak immune system from the first disease, which caused my lungs to collapse, very unlikely for a 17-year-old. The hospital I was in couldn't do any more for me. So another hospital came with a rescue team of 8 people and a heart-lung machine, ECMO. Very rare that hospitals have those that can be transported. The hospital only used it the second time, and the first time successfully, to pick me up. They brought me to the other hospital. I was in a coma for a couple more days, but made it out of hospital within 3 weeks after that. Just before Christmas, a big newspaper wanted the story for Christmas miracles, but no, thanks. Story 40. I haven't been 1 in a million to my knowledge, but I've been 1 in 10,000 at weight. I had my appendix removed, and when they went and they discovered that my appendix was in the complete wrong location, and apparently that's pretty darn rare. Story 41. I once won a large coloring contest as a little kid and got a gift certificate and a large stuffed animal. I think it was a random draw because my entry was honestly... Story 42. Over 2K comments. I imagine this won't be seen, but whatever, been waiting to post this somewhere. I survived earlier this month from hypothermia by walking with my brother in -40 with wind chill to the liquor store. We were already drunk a bit and never checked the weather. Got the bottle, headed back to chill in the fort, but I passed out. He ran to grab my dad and wake him up to get the truck. I was probably passed out for 10 minutes whilst they found me, dragged me into the truck, and to the hospital where the doctor said I didn't have a chance and my father should be waiting for the call. I remember I woke up with the doctors shoving a big breathing tube in my throat, but I couldn't breathe. I was restrained to the bed, trying to take it out, and I remember a nurse saying, breathe, and I did, once every 5 seconds, until the doc finally said take it out. And he did. I gasped for life when they took it out. So relieved, I remember. I looked at myself, in a gown hooked up like a robot, wires connected to me, and 3 machines around me, and like 6 people in a room. Then the alarms on the machines went off, and I blacked out. They monitored me for 8 hours until I was stable. I died in cardiac arrest for about less than 5 minutes. Could be less. I was revived successfully and monitored closely. I woke up a day later, seeing my mother and the brother. However, I was so high on morphine, I think that I mumbled a few words and smiled at Mom until I passed out. I survived. I honestly am glad I survived. My hands got frostbite really bad, but it's normal now. This happened on the 10th. And in recovering, with a new lease on life, edit, thanks to the kind comments, it's been hard going on from this. But I'm trying hard to keep myself together. I still don't know how to feel about the situation, like I should be upset or sad or something. I'm not. Just really unsure of the whole situation. All I know is I need to get my life together. I could be pitiful and look for sympathy, but I'm past that and going forward now. Life is short, and I got to make the best out of it.